The courtroom was silent, heavy with tension and the faint scent of polished mahogany. Every whisper felt amplified, every sigh an intrusion. Alexander Pierce adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous habit he'd never admit to. The billionaire CEO of Pierce Global Holdings didn't fidget, didn't falter. At least, not in public. But today wasn't business. It was personal. He was here to end his marriage. The last string tying him to a past he'd buried under layers of work, ambition, and cold success. Across the aisle sat Elena Pierce, his wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife. She looked nothing like the woman he remembered from 3 years ago. Her once fiery spirit was now cloaked in calm composure. She wore a navy dress that fit her slender frame perfectly, her hair neatly tied back. She didn't look at him, not even once. Good, he told himself. It's better this way. Then he noticed them, 2 small figures sitting beside her, a boy and a girl, no older than 3. Both had dark curls and piercing blue eyes. His eyes. For a moment, the air left his lungs. The world blurred around him, the judge's voice fading into a hum. The boy was fidgeting with a toy car, while the girl clutched a worn-out teddy bear, the same brand he'd bought for Elena years ago when they'd been happy. His heart stuttered. "Elena," he said, breaking the silence. Her lawyer looked up, surprised, but she didn't flinch. "Who are they?" His voice was steady, but beneath it ran a tremor only he could feel. Her eyes flicked up, calm but guarded. "They're mine." His brows furrowed. "Yours?" He took a step forward. "Or ours?" The entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. "Mr. Pierce," his lawyer began nervously, but Alexander cut him off with a glare. Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. "You lost the right to ask that question the day you walked out." Her words hit harder than he expected. He could still see that night in his mind, rain lashing against the windows, her tears shining in the dim light. They'd fought about everything, his late hours, his priorities, her loneliness. He'd said things he didn't mean. "I don't have time for a family, Elena." And then he'd left. He'd convinced himself it was for the best. He was building an empire. He didn't need distractions. But now, looking at the little girl's curls and the boy's determined frown, he felt the ground shift beneath him. The judge entered, calling the session to order, but Alexander barely heard him. "Your Honor," Elena's lawyer began, "we're here today to finalize the dissolution of marriage between Mr. and Mrs. Pierce." "No." The word was soft, but it echoed like thunder. The judge blinked. "Excuse me, Mr. Pierce." "I said no," Alexander repeated, rising from his chair. His voice was calm, but it carried authority, the same voice that commanded boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. "This divorce isn't happening." Gasps rippled across the courtroom. Elena's eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't just." "I can," he interrupted, stepping closer. "Not until I get the truth." The judge sighed, clearly irritated. "Mr. Pierce, this is highly irregular." "So is discovering your wife has been raising your children in secret," Alexander snapped. Whispers spread like wildfire through the courtroom. Elena stood, trembling. "Stop it, you don't get to play the victim." "I'm not," he said softly. "I just want to understand." She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in years. Her eyes, once full of love, were now filled with hurt. "You made it clear what you wanted, Alexander. Power, money, control, not a family." He opened his mouth, then shut it. The memory of his own cruel words stabbed through him like glass. The judge, perhaps sensing that this was no ordinary divorce, cleared his throat. "Given the circumstances, I suggest a private conversation before proceeding." Court is adjourned for 1 hour. Elena gathered the twins quickly, but Alexander wasn't letting her disappear this time. Outside the courtroom, he caught up to her. "Elena," he said, softer now. "Please." She stopped, shoulders tense. "They're mine, aren't they?" Tears filled her eyes, but she shook her head. "What difference does it make now? You weren't there. You never wanted to be." He exhaled shakily. "I didn't know, Elena. If I had, you would have what?" She snapped. "Given up your empire. Spent nights at home instead of flying across the world. You don't know how to love without ownership, Alexander. That's why I left before you could." He stared at her, words failing him. For once, the great Alexander Pierce, who could charm investors and silence competitors, had no defense. The little boy tugged at Elena's hand. "Mommy, is he mad?" Her heart cracked at the innocent question. "No, sweetheart," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "He's just surprised." Alexander crouched down, slowly. The boy's eyes, blue as the ocean, met his. There was no denying it. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Liam," the boy said proudly. "And yours?" he asked the little girl. She hid behind her mother, clutching her bear. "This is Lily," Elena said quietly. Liam tilted his head. "Are you mommy's friend?" Alexander's voice wavered. "Something like that." Elena's eyes glistened. She looked away, but not before he saw the pain she tried so hard to hide. He straightened, running a hand through his hair. "You should have told me. I wanted to," she said, her voice breaking. "But I couldn't risk you rejecting them the way you rejected me." He swallowed hard. "Elena, I was wrong. About everything." She let out a bitter laugh. "You can't undo 3 years of silence with an apology." "Maybe not," he said, stepping closer. "But I can try." For a long moment, they just stood there, the billionaire and the woman who once loved him, the ghosts of their past standing between them in the form of 2 innocent children. "I don't know what happens next," she whispered. He looked at her, then at the twins. "Neither do I, but I know one thing, I'm not walking away this time." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't stop them. For the first time in years, Alexander Pierce wasn't thinking about mergers or profit margins. He was thinking about the family he'd almost lost, and the fragile chance to make things right. As Elena gathered the twins to leave, he said softly, "Tomorrow, I'll come by. Not as your boss, not as your ex, just as their father." She met his gaze, searching for the man she used to know. And for the first time, she almost saw him again. The courtroom doors closed behind her, but Alexander stood there, staring at the empty hall, a man who had conquered the world, now realizing he had nothing until he'd earned back the one thing that truly mattered. His family. The courtroom was silent, except for the ticking of the clock above the judge's bench. Alexander Pierce, the billionaire CEO of Pierce Global Holdings, adjusted his cufflinks for the 3rd time, his every movement precise, controlled, calculated. To the world, he was the perfect image of power, untouchable, unbreakable, unfeeling. Today, that illusion was about to end. He was here to end his marriage. Across the aisle, Elena Pierce sat poised, her chin lifted high. Her once playful curls were now tied neatly, her face calm yet unreadable. He had expected tears, perhaps bitterness, but instead, she looked at peace. Then he saw them, 2 small figures beside her. A boy and a girl. Children. The girl clutched a stuffed bear, the boy played with a small red toy car, unaware of the storm in the room. They couldn't have been older than 3. But what froze Alexander wasn't their presence, it was their eyes. Blue, piercing, the exact shade of his own. For a man who'd faced down ruthless investors and courtrooms full of enemies, Alexander had never known fear like this. "Elena," he said, voice low but firm, breaking the silence. "Who are they?" Her lawyer shifted nervously. She hesitated. "They're mine." His jaw tightened. "Yours." Her eyes met his, guarded, sharp. "You lost the right to ask questions when you walked out, Alexander." The words cut deeper than any accusation. He remembered that night vividly, the shouting, the rain, the moment he'd said, "I don't have time for a family." And then he'd left, choosing ambition over everything else. But now those words haunted him in miniature form, sitting beside her with his eyes. The judge entered, calling the court to order, but Alexander didn't hear a thing. "Your Honor," Elena's lawyer began, "we're here today to finalize the dissolution of marriage between Mr. and Mrs. Pierce." "No." The single word cracked through the air. The judge blinked. "Mr. Pierce." Alexander rose slowly, his presence commanding. "This divorce isn't happening." Gasps echoed. Even Elena froze. "You can't just decide that," she started. "I can," he interrupted, stepping forward. "Not until I know the truth." "Mr. Pierce," the judge warned, "this is not the place for." "It's exactly the place," Alexander snapped. Then softer, eyes locked on Elena's. "Are they mine?" Elena's hands trembled as she reached for the twins. "You don't get to claim them now." "I'm not claiming," he said. "I'm asking." The little girl's wide eyes darted between them, sensing the tension. The boy clutched Elena's hand protectively. The judge, clearly uncomfortable, adjourned the session. "We'll reconvene once both parties are ready to proceed." Elena gathered her children quickly. But as she walked past, Alexander's voice stopped her. "Elena," he said quietly. "Please, don't walk away again." She hesitated, just long enough for him to catch the shimmer of tears in her eyes, and then left without another word. And Alexander Pierce, the man who owned half the city, stood there utterly powerless for the first time in his life. Part 2, The Truth Beneath the Silence. The next morning, rain drummed against the glass walls of Alexander's penthouse office. He hadn't slept. The image of the twins haunted him, their faces, their eyes, the quiet question that had no answer. Jonathan, his lawyer, stood across the desk. If what you suspect is true, we can request a paternity test before the court proceeds. Alexander's eyes darkened. No. Jonathan frowned. No, I don't need a test to tell me what I already know, he said quietly. They're mine. Hours later, he found himself standing outside a small townhouse in Brooklyn, far from his usual world of glass towers and luxury cars. Elena's world. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised. Just tired. You shouldn't be here. Then tell me to leave, he said. She hesitated, and that was all the invitation he needed. Inside, toys littered the living room. A soft melody played from the twins' room. It was so ordinary, so human, it felt like another planet. Liam, the boy, peeked from behind a doorway. Mommy, who's that? Elena forced a smile. Just someone I used to know. Hi, Liam, Alexander said gently, kneeling down. I'm Alex. The boy grinned shyly, holding up his toy car. Mine's faster. Alexander chuckled softly. I bet it is. Elena crossed her arms. You shouldn't be doing this. He rose to meet her eyes. You hid them from me, Elena. You left me, she shot back. You made it clear you didn't want a family. I had no choice. His jaw clenched. You had every choice except this. Her voice cracked. I begged you to stay, Alexander. You chose work over us. I couldn't let you walk in and out of their lives when it was convenient for you. He stepped closer. You think I'd walk away now? I don't know, she whispered. The man I loved would have stayed. The man you became, she shook her head. He scares me. The tension broke when Lily, the little girl, toddled out, holding her teddy bear. Mommy, who's he? Elena froze. Alexander knelt again, softer this time. I'm someone who should have been here a long time ago. Lily blinked. Are you daddy? The room went still. Elena's breath hitched. Lily, sweetheart. But Alexander answered first, voice trembling. Yes, I am. Tears filled Elena's eyes, and for the first time, Alexander saw not anger, but heartbreak. Later, when the twins napped, they sat in silence by the window. The rain had stopped, leaving only the sound of the city below. I built everything, he said quietly. Skyscrapers, companies, fortunes. But none of it matters if I can't build what I broke. Elena stared at him, her expression softening. You can't fix 3 years overnight. I know, he said. But let me try. For them, for us. She looked down at her hands. You walked away once. What if you do it again? He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. Then I'd lose everything that truly matters. And this time, I'd have no one to blame but myself. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not hopeless. Finally, she whispered, one step at a time, Alexander. He nodded. I'll take it. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds. Inside, for the first time in years, Alexander Pierce felt something he hadn't in a long time, not power, not control, but hope. As he left her house, he turned back to see Liam and Lily waving from the window. Elena stood behind them, her expression unreadable, but softer than before. Maybe forgiveness wouldn't come easily. Maybe love couldn't be rebuilt overnight. But as Alexander walked down that quiet Brooklyn street, one truth echoed louder than anything else. He had entered that courtroom to end his marriage. Instead, he'd found the beginning of everything he'd been missing.